All right, my friends, welcome to this extremely special podcast episode. I think you're lit up there. Yep. Today, I'm going to just do a little reading for you, but after this, I'm not going to, and I'm going to let this incredible human being talk. We have Dr. Barry Morguelan. He's a 35-year practicing gastroenterologist and endoscopic surgeon from UCLA. Wise before wise, but so I got to listen to a few interviews that he had done beforehand, and Dr. Barry, as we'll call him, he's kind of this bridge that I think a lot of us have been looking for, of somebody who's extraordinarily well trained in the medical field, but saw some of the gaps that are in that field and perhaps how people are being taken care of, and got extraordinarily curious with not just treating people when they're sick, but also what's the source of the cause of some of these ailments that people are dealing with, or probably all the elements that people are dealing with, and then how can we start looking at that from a more spiritual, energetic perspective, and has gone on a pretty tremendous, I think that's an understatement of the century from what I've heard, kind of like life journey that aligns itself with some of the really cool blockbuster movies that people see. And so I've heard quite a bit about that, and today I'm super happy to share this genius with you. And something I want to let you guys know that kind of knocked me on my ass today, and I was wondering for myself how many people on the planet have this name, but I found out from Dave Asprey that one of your titles is Grand Master, and that there's only a dozen of you on planet Earth, and you are the first Western Grand Master. And I'll let you kind of get into what that is. So, Dr. Barry, welcome to today's show. Super happy to have you.
It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. So really, like the first thing, I just want to give some people context. I know I give a really brief summary on who you are and what you do, but ultimately I just want you to tell a little bit about your story, maybe why you got into medical school, what was the reasoning behind that, and then ultimately kind of what led you more on this spiritual path.
It's great to be here, Guy. I've also heard a lot about you, so that's why as soon as we were in the area, I said, "Oh, this is something we're going to do."
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, really.
Yeah.
And you're being a sincere, genuine person is your MO. That's how people said, "Oh yeah, you'll like him," and so that's what's happened. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that.
So my, I think, Odysseus travail throughout life started, about 30 years ago when I was at UCLA working in my fellowship and gastroenterology, and I was already board certified in internal medicine, and then I was got my boards in gastroenterology, and then did research in GI and was able to produce something in that was successful. And then extremely busy practice after that, right after I went into practice in Los Angeles. And I still have 2 practices there that have been continuously busy. And that was great to see so many people that you could help with the endoscopic techniques that were blossoming then. So initially, believe it or not, before the endoscopy equipment got really, really good, there was still a heavy pressure from old guard Western medicine to surgery for everything. And
Yes.
I was thrilled to see that could be doing surgical techniques without cutting people, just on the inside with an endoscope. Go through the mouth, through other orifices, through the abdomen, and then you could take tumors out, you could laser, you could do all kinds of things and get somebody completely well without ever having to cut, and they could go home. And it's sometimes a day, 2 days, but the point was that people really healed faster, and I was so excited to see all the things we could do for people, except that I noticed that over and over again I would have clients either in the emergency room who would return with another illness, something else. And hey, Fred, what are you doing back? He says, well, now I've got this other problem, and then and I said, okay, let's fix that. And you don't have to be admitted this time. Or I would have a patient on the floor. I think other people have heard about this older Hispanic woman, Mrs. Gonzalez, and there was a Mrs. Rodriguez. There's more than one who were there with multiple polyps, came in, we removed them, they were very happy. But then they would always look at me and say, I got to get back to my 9 children, and I'm the mother of the house,
Yeah.
of taking care of all these wonderful kids, and everybody works, and I'd sit on their bed and I'd say, I really wish there was a way that people could get well and stay well and not have to come in at all. And both of these older ladies would, I remember, because it happened more than once, would look at me and say, well, if anybody's going to do it, you're the guy, why don't you go do it? And I went, yeah, I think I want to do that. So I made a pact with myself, and it was a very ethereal day, the time that I remember the most, with Miss Rodriguez, where the sun was coming in, and I was sitting on her bed, and I was sort of holding her hand, this elderly, somewhat obese Hispanic woman, but a sweet face, and saying, God, my heart goes out to her, and I feel that towards all the patients that I'm going to be treating going on for the next who knows how many years.
Sure. There's
got to be something that can be done. And of course, I mentioned this to other doctors, and they all said, you're at the top of your field. What are you doing? Where are you going? There's no place else for you to go except keep doing more research. But, you have to stay in the Western model. There isn't anything. What are you looking for? Fountain of youth?
Yeah.
And I said, maybe. Let me see. So then I went on my search, but there was nobody's going to fund it in those days. They'd fund for traditional Western medicine research, but not for what I was looking for, which is how not to even get sick, but also, could it be possible? This is what really turned me on. Could it be possible that instead of, most people, I think of life as sort of you go along like this, and then like this, and then like this, and then over time, it's down, and then you say, well, that's age, and that's how things are.
Yeah.
And I said, what if it didn't have to go that way? What if you could go like this and then get stronger each day and get more powerful each day? That it isn't that you're actually made to be actually more vital, because the cells in your body do that all the time. And in those days they didn't have all the research on genetics that is known now with epigenetics, which has all come out. All the stuff from Harvard and MIT is coming out a lot now about saying that there's a whole lot that can be done. Just how do we access it? But there was no one even saying that in the days that I started out. People were just saying, no, there's nothing you can do. People just sort of go like this.
Much more fixed way of thinking.
And I said, well, there's no evidence for that now, that people could get better and better, but if it is, I'm going to make it my search. So that was my new research, which was to go any place and every place I could discover something that would be alternative to the. And I'm at the top of technology to help people painlessly with endoscopy, and still that wasn't enough to stop them from coming back to the emergency room or their relatives or whoever. And it's like I saw everybody's pain. It was bothering me. Every time I was
Sure.
I'm sure it would be like with you, with your child, With me, every patient came in was like a child or a relative. I was feeling more and more sad that, this is not the way I want my career to completely end up. I want to be able to make some kind of difference for all these people. If it's possible, it doesn't exist. So I used my own funds. There was nobody going to fund me. And I went like every 2-3 months somewhere. And remember, in Los Angeles in those days, there was no like alternative care. There was no integrative medicine. There was just barely there was no Starbucks, there was no espresso coffee, there was donut shops and maybe 1 or 2 vitamin shops, but that was it. I mean, I don't think we even had croissants in those days. And LA was supposed to be somewhat advanced. I mean, there was one grocery store that eventually grew, Mrs. Gooch's, which turned out to eventually be a chain that turned out to grow, and it was wonderful to find someone interested in farm to table kind of food, but that wasn't even big then either. Everything was already, prepackaged and ready for the grocery store. So anyway, I studied so many different things. I mean, I actually learned acupuncture, chiropractic, osteopathy, crystal therapies, water therapy. I went all up and down the coast of California, went to the Native Americans and southern United States and did the vision quests and breathed a lot of smoke in those teepees.
Yes.
But and also went through all those things about being left out in the forests and all the outer bounds things that were available in those days to test yourself and see, is there something else that I could discover or talk to people. Mostly I was interested in going through whatever anybody else had gone through and say, well, what's the results? Because if it's the results, I wanted to bring it back to UCLA.
Sure.
Even though I was in private practice then, I still was, connected with teaching there sometimes or connect with all the rest of my colleagues there. So,
and really quick, out of curiosity, at this point, are you clear that the symptoms that people are exhibiting are that they have energetic components, they have spiritual components, or are you still looking at it completely from the Western physical? You're just looking to heal those kind of ailments?
I think that's you hit on the point. Inside, I constantly had this GPS that kept going. This is not the direction you want to go. This direction with the whole body, the
Yes.
heart, gives a person a better chance, because everybody knows in athletics, as you're going through grade school, high school, if you do anything that's really great, you get into this zone space
Right.
where you're really, really capable. Where to go? And how do you bring it back? And I said, there's other places the body can really do great things. How could I access that? So, and then I ended up traveling over the next 6 or 7 years about 160,000 miles around the planet.
Wow.
I go to Central America, South America, Europe.
Like shamanic work, plant medicine work, all
Yeah,
this?
well, there's even photos of me with all the shamanic gear on,
Yeah.
and with the painted face and all that stuff, because I wanted to find out what could you do with that.
Same.
How much, when you're down in Ecuador or you're in the jungles there, and yes, I tried all those wonderful things that
Yep.
people are playing around with now and doing microdosing, and I must say that not all those herbs and these big wonderful things that you could take and people are trying now was still not something, although they were great experiences, they're out-of-body experiences, transcendental experiences, the herbs they have down there are amazing.
Sure.
We still, you have to go down there to actually and get to know them, to know more than what people are really experiencing even now. There's something, they're beyond LSD kind of
Yes.
medications. But the point was, I couldn't bring that back to UCLA.
Of course not.
I
Yeah.
couldn't bring that back to say, okay, we now have something, Mrs. Rodriguez, that you don't have to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to take this, this dose of this every day.
That's
It's going
right.
to make you stronger.
Yep.
And so that I studied all the herbs I could, and there was, let's see, what else was there was in there's all these crystal caves in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really big crystals. I'm sure you've been down there, and then you can meditate in those, and it's great. We mentioned Paramahansa Yogananda, who was, when I remember reading his book, and I went, "Where are you? I have to find where you were connected." And so I learned all about meditation and enjoyed many forms of meditation. But there's so many different wonderful, culturally around the world, ways of learning to meditate.
Yes.
Which all contributed to me. You don't have to get as far out as the shamanic techniques or as the deep jungle techniques or meditating in Egypt in the pyramids. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can connect, and people are finding that out. But still, that's me. I wanted to have her. I wanted you, I wanted to give this out to the world.
Yeah.
I wanted to find something we could distribute to the world that everybody would have it, so you wouldn't have to go to the hospital anymore. You wouldn't have to get sick, and you wouldn't have to buy any medications. You'd be able to take care of yourself and your family, and I felt it existed. And so the only rough part of that was every time I would come back, because I'd have other doctors covering my practice. And remember, they're all still very solid. I mean, in those days, I wore a white coat all the time.
Yeah, very
and a
rigid
tie,
structures, yeah.
and a tie.
Yeah.
Right out of the routine Dr. Kildare look, and because that's what was the uniform. And the other doctors go, people are going to steal your practice if you keep taking all these trips. And where are you going? What do you think? Find the fountain of youth? Or you're out of your mind. You shouldn't do that. And I'd go, I don't think anybody's going to steal my practice. And so far, I don't mind you all taking the patients, because I think I have to find this out. This is I'm not finished yet.
Yeah.
I'm just not finished with my education and research of finding this out, and it doesn't seem to exist yet. And they say, well, you're never going to find it. One of my nemesis said that. You're just wasting your time, and it's a bad idea. So I said, well, thank you, but that's not what my goal is. I'm going to keep going. So year after year, I went to a different place. And so, let's see, we talked about Central America, South America. I went to, in Europe, in Germany, they have all the electrical equipment, which has gotten much better there. They have a lot of better equipment now, all of which you can get on the internet.
You're talking like Beamer mats and those kind of
Right,
things.
they had Beamer, they had Rife.
Yeah.
And Rife has been completely upgraded. They've got millions of different choices there. But
Yeah.
the point was, it was still after the fact.
Yeah.
See? So I was going, okay, well, you're going to use the electrical device to find out what else you need, and then we're going to put current through you. But as far as your body's cellular structure, to dial in just the right sensitivity of the vibration that you need, it takes really close monitoring. And all the machines
internally, as far as like a personal awareness or monitoring from an outside
well,
source?
let's see. There's machines like the Rife in those days.
Yeah.
They shook you like this.
Yes.
And I had a friend in South Africa, in Cape Town, who had 2 Rife machines.
Yeah.
Big, tall guy, Austrian guy, and he was always using his Rife machine. And I would always say, and I tried it out, and I worked with people in Germany and Frankfurt and in Munich. With the equipment they had, and in Garmisch-Partenkirchen, and a number of places in Germany, Bremen, where I would also teach endoscopy, but which was my technique for being able to travel. I would always get to visit with doctors in different places, and I would say, okay, I'm going to teach all the techniques that we've advanced at UCLA, because it was a very, very good program in those days as far as endoscopic surgery. But while I was there, I'll never forget, there was a guy in London who I talked to, at a really prestigious hospital, and we were talking about advanced techniques and removing gallstones out of the bile duct system, and really sensitive things that took a lot of adaptability with your fingers to be able to manipulate the scopes and be able to do the work correctly and safely. And I said, okay, it was afternoon. And I said, we're going to close up now. So I've got these other questions I want to ask you. He goes, well, what else? I said, is there anything that is alternative, that's integrative, that would allow people not to develop these problems? Or what are other people taking that are not coming to the hospital or not coming down with these problems? And I'll never forget, he looked at me and went, you need to talk to my grandmother. She has stuff from the old country, before she came over. She does stuff like that, but we don't have anything in the pharmacies or anyplace else that's going to really make that big of a difference. Because I think in London, what I got enamored with in those days was the Bach remedies, all the flower remedies,
right,
and were wonderful things. And,
yeah.
And in France, when I worked in Paris, not that it had to be Paris, there was other cities, but the point was, it was a center for great knowledge in Western medicine, and yet even there, what I was able to learn in those days was I bought back a lot of aerators for all the beautiful, wonderful aromatherapy that they had developed. So they had wonderful aromatherapy, and I had them all over my office. In my office, I had aromatherapy machines going in each room, and I was always testing, asking the patient, how do you feel? Do you think this is going to have an effect? And, it was wonderful, but it still wasn't the thing.
Preventative, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't enough to get people stronger either.
Sure.
It was just something that made things a little easier for where they were at. So it was finally ended up in China. And in China, that was at the end.
And this is in the 80s.
Yeah.
China. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, different place.
It's completely different.
Yeah.
Completely. They're still wearing the outfits, the old Mao outfits, because it was a poor country then. It's not like now where it's extremely wealthy.
That's right.
Yeah, and actually I prefer the old style, because that's where I finally found what I was looking for. And I was working in one of the hospitals there, and I'll never forget, I saw a book in one of the libraries there, and everything, all those, since World War II, they hadn't really been able to have that much money to improve all the hospitals. So there was a lot of still unpainted areas and books stacked. Things weren't taken care of. They didn't have much money. But I found this book where it showed this one master with the whole regalia treating a client who was obviously had a broken wound, but he wasn't touching him. Treating him from a distance, and they were showing that he was, as I looked through the pages, he was healing them without even having to do any surgery or any lasering like we would have to do with endoscopy. But in China, I finally got to see this book, and so I ran to the head of the hospital there where I was working. I said, hey, I got to meet this guy who's doing this. And they went, well, you've been doing great here, and you've been teaching us, and we're hoping you stay, and we're very satisfied with all your work, but that's impossible. And I went, just like that? That's impossible. He said, that's impossible. And I said, why? He said, he is a national treasure. In China, that's a big thing where you have guards and they wear these badges and no one's allowed to be near them.
Yeah.
Because he's the repository for all of Chinese medicine, which even in those days and these days are still the Yellow Emperor's book. And they say all that has been delivered not only to him and through him, but going back all the days 5,000 years ago, back to Lao Tzu and back to Wan Di and back to the wonderful people that trained them.
Yeah.
And they said that his oral tradition, he's the one who is located at different monasteries, but he's not going to see you. Plus, if he ever did see you, you're not a dignitary, and it's very, very expensive. So he wouldn't see you. I said, well, how expensive? They go, well, in those days, it was like 25 years ago, $10,000
Wow.
one visit, and you can imagine. But they didn't. So I said, I mean, you could imagine how upset I was. I felt like I finally found the person I was looking for. That here's someone who possibly had the juice to be able to show me that this is really real.
Yeah.
Oh, I left
Laissez-faire.
Well,
Yeah.
no, and one thing I did leave out, there was also a trip to the Philippines. And I don't know if you know about Philippines, but they have the psychic surgery there. Okay, so I actually worked with those few people who could actually demonstrate that they could do psychic surgery. And it was extremely exciting. It was fun. But again, you're not going to come back to the university and saying, okay, I want you to lay here flat. Don't worry about the blood. I'm just going to get my hand in your abdomen and I'm going to pull out all the bad stuff, which is all they knew they were doing in terms of technically what was coming out. But there's a lot behind that, what they were doing, but still wasn't going to be accepted. And plus, you're still sick. I want you to come, I want you to be you able to do it yourself.
Yeah.
And I want you to be able to stay well on your own. Remember, my goal is that you keep getting stronger on your own.
Sure.
So I said, well, that's unacceptable for me. So I asked him and asked him and asked him. Finally, he said, okay, this is the chief of the office. He said, I'll refer you to my cousin who it can possibly get you someone who can take you up the mountain to the monastery he's at. And so he referred me to, because the cousin was really not really free with all the translation, so he handed me over to a friend. So now I don't even know who I'm with. And he took me up the mountain, but then the motorcycle broke down, and so I had to walk half the distance up there. When I finally got to the camp, though, it was just like I was at, Star Wars. It was amazing seeing what was going on there, because they were bringing people in front of the Grand Master, and he was treating them without touching them, and I saw wounds heal in front of my eyes.
Wow.
And I'm used to sewing people up in the emergency room, but I'm not used to walking up there and having everything go zzz.
Yeah, like cellular generation, like instantaneously.
And it was great. So I was like,
that's incredible.
and with a real interest in anthropology, I just did anything I could to convince the people around there to talk to him, because my Mandarin wasn't that good at that time, to tell him that I would just love to see if I could just hang out and study there. And and just watch what he does. And I was the only American, only English-speaking person. I was wearing my baseball hat, so I was much taller than the people there.
Sure.
And they called me, they also gave me the same welcome. They went, no. And worse, they called me Gui Lao. And so Gui Lao, it means white ghost. Or it just means ghost. It just means something not good in terms of Chinese culture. So it means we really don't need you.
We're going to avoid you.
We really don't need you.
Yeah.
You're of no value. And he doesn't need people around of no value. And you wouldn't understand it anyway. But I stayed. And that's another whole story. And that's, I've got material that's going to come out and talk about those rough days of staying there when they wouldn't even give me a place to sleep. But I didn't care. And eventually I got people who would give me some food each day. But I always stayed because I was just, I'm at the place. This is it. I got to see it. Plus, you could feel it. You could feel this. Just by John of God, how people go there, and all of a sudden you notice there's sort of a general feeling of well-being around him. Well, this was more than well-being. This was like being in a hurricane.
Yeah, like a field of wellness.
It was like you're being levitated the whole time you're there. I was going, I feel great. I don't know why I'm treating that guy, but I feel great. And I'm 20 feet behind him. So the field he was creating was enough that he was bringing through him to treat the clients that came up. And they came up for all kinds of reasons, some psychological. Some people I saw, being completely crazy. Again, not without touch. Some people came for business, and those people paid even more than $10,000. I heard they wanted to make great financial decisions, and when your brain is completely clear and you're not flummoxed with all the distractions that are in the world we're in, the stress, and the confusion, and where do I go next, and all that, it's very easy. I eventually learned with the Grandmaster to see in reality what your next best choice is. You're actually made to make great choices.
Yes.
And you do that if you've ever, do you ever ski?
Yeah, one of my favorite sports.
Okay, skiing's one of my favorites also.
Yeah.
So in skiing, a lot of times you'll see maybe the two red bars there, and you'll see that when you weren't expecting as you come over a hill, and you just quickly shift and ski around, and you're still having a great time.
Sure.
Right, so that's what he was trying to elucidate to me when we finally eventually got to connect, which is that within you, if you open up these sensors, just like in skiing, you're so in reality, the real reality, that if something's not good for you, just move away from it.
Yeah.
And if something is good for you, you can then start to enjoy it. So he called it being 360, that you're involved with your entire experience in front of you, behind you, on either side. And so about 2 years, back and forth to China. I'm just all thrilled. Of course, I got sick many times. There's not much cleanliness.
Sure.
So I don't want to recommend people getting all the different dysenteries that I got just to be there. But I really didn't care about that either, because as bad as I felt getting there each time, with either finding out where they were going to be and what, no cell phones in those days, so it was hard to work things out all the time. It was still worth it. Whenever I'd get to the camp, wherever he was working on people, it was just phenomenal. Finally, one day he said, "Would you like to learn?" And I went, "Wow, this would be the greatest thing in the world." It was just a big surprise. I never thought he would even care to train me. And he said, "But I have to tell you, through a translator, he said, it's not a fun training. And no one likes it. And you wouldn't like it. And plus, nobody makes it." And I went, "Wait a minute, nobody makes it? I made it all these distance, over almost up to that time, 200,000 miles, traveling around the world, leaving my practice, and just going for it to find this." And he says, "I'm not going to make it." He said, "Yeah, you can see around me, there's who is in the level that I'm in, that I can, work with at the same level to treat all the different clients that come up here." He said that you're only meant to go as far this lifetime as in this training, to be able to help people with energy like this special powers, as you were meant to be. So if you don't go as far, that's it. So I said, "Okay, I'll take the deal." He said, "But that's not all." He said, "Also, there's no malpractice here. As you notice when you come up the mountain, wherever we are, you don't see fences, you don't see any signs.
Sure.
We have people, get hurt all the time, and so no one's going to help you if you get hurt, and you could even die." And I went, "Oh, this is not good, but I don't care." I remember, I felt like I was in a beam of light while he was talking to me. I was going, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And he says, "It may take a long, long time. You may never make it to, as long as you live."
Yeah.
And I said, "I still want to be trained." So I did. I started the training program with him, and the wonderful thing about it was old China with a lot of rules and a lot of severity and a lot of danger. I didn't like the danger part at all, and there were other people who would come to the camps where we were from different parts of Asia, no Americans, no English-speaking people. I was the only person who ever was, Guilao being there as the English-speaking, and no other medical doctors either. I ended up being the only medical doctor, only English-speaking person, Western, ever to have been trained in this and to have made it all the way to the end, to be able to do this for other people, which is, it didn't happen overnight.
How long did that take from start to finish?
Over 10 years.
Wow. And were you there the entire time, or you would kind of bounce back and forth?
But he wouldn't let you stay.
I see.
He would give you certain challenges, and then you'd have to do them. Some of the challenges were right there, and then he'd leave you, and then you may never come back.
Yeah.
You had to find your way back to the camp wherever he was. A lot of times you would never know where he was.
So they're showing you like a technique. You're
show
mastering.
you a technique, and you have to master the technique. If you master the technique, the information will be uncovered in the technique.
Revealing.
They sort of showed that in, let's see. They showed that, the movie Doctor Strange?
Yes.
So you know how they said, you can pick your robe or your special item, it will pick you.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
That comes from one of my talks, which is that he said that if you're going to make it through each one, there will be something revealed to you at that moment that will give you the information to go on. That'll mean you're to go to the next step. And if you're not, settle for that. And there was one, it's not a good story, but there's one guy from Hong Kong who I became very good friends with, mainly because he was funny and Hong Kong people speak great English.
Mm-hmm.
So he was always helping me in translation, but he was really super educated guy and always would come to the camps, not always when I was there, but was often there, and he was always complaining, the Grandmaster should show us things why is he stuck me with this one exercise, which I don't see anything on the other side of it. And he was always fighting him, and always saying that, internally, not in front of him, but internally he wouldn't just give himself fully to even simple exercises that we were trained in that you would say, God, that's such an easy act. How could there be any value in that?
Yeah.
But there was great values. And just like people say, how could there be any value in meditation just sitting there?
Yeah.
You know, they just don't have a clue that in some of these positions, when you keep doing them, you get more and more opened up into all of a sudden what turned out to be finding out that you have these sensors all over your body that people don't learn to use. You only use a few of them. Use your ears,
right?
Which vibrate. That's a sensor. Use your eyes. That's light sensors. I mean, there's just so many, but mostly we focus on the big five here in Western medicine.
Mm-hmm.
But in there, we learned to focus on thousands of them. And so he didn't do too well, that guy. He ended up dying. Yeah, it was sad. And it was in one of the challenges, too, which made me even more wondering, I wonder how to continue with this. I mean, just, sometimes I'd be at the camp and say a week earlier, I was doing surgeries in the hospital with nurses and giving orders and having all these people come to me and getting people, quote unquote, well in Western medicine, getting them out. Everybody's happy. And I'm going, that was a good life. What am I doing here? People are dying.
Yeah.
I may be next.
Yeah.
But I still said, what else am I going to do?
Can you give some examples? Because I heard from previous interviews some of the things, and I thought they were fascinating in terms of like
challenges?
The type of challenges they were putting you into, because they really were not easy to say yes to.
They were all not easy, and they all weren't with no guarantee on any of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just want to give some people some context so they kind of know what energies you're working with that allowed for these things.
Okay. Well, there's ones for all different levels. There's two. This energy I eventually found out was, as the head of the hospital had told me, that he was the repository of all the source energy that had spawned Tai Chi, Qigong, herbal medicine, which is one of the things I learned before I got to go up there. I was teaching in China. I actually studied herbology both here and there, worked in the pharmacy there.
Yeah.
And their herbs were, it wasn't anything pure, not like today with the capsules. We'd grind up all kinds of things from the mountains and we'd have to go out and get them. It was almost like being a botanist, which was sort of exciting because that was before I ever got to meet the Grand Master. But and I also learned acupuncture there, which could have been, something I could have stopped with, but it wasn't. I still wanted to keep going until finally I met him and got to work with him. And so some of the challenges, let me see. Okay, so there's two branches. One branch of the source energy is what you would call the martial arts branch. The other one is the branch that has to do with high performance, self-realization, enlightenment, and improving your mental faculties so that you actually are better each day at being able to make decisions and help people, help your family, help everyone without, making mistakes and running your skis over the orange cross there. So an example of one of the training things was one time he sent me up to go up there. There's an old temple, and don't come down until you have your transformation of what the next step is. So I go up to this old temple. I don't think I've told this on a podcast before, but it's a good example. So I went up to this old temple, and it was old, and it was broken down, and there wasn't many people around there. And so I went, wow, this is great. There's nobody here speaking English. I have no idea what I'm supposed to be getting out of this experience. Plus, he said, don't come back until I have the result. And I don't know what the result is.
Yeah.
So, that isn't what you tell the chief of a department in Western medicine at the hospital, where everybody goes, here, can you sign this note here? Can this patient leave? Can you get this prescription? I mean, you're always doing the right thing and it gets done. Here, I'm going to go there and I have no idea when the end's going to happen. Yeah. So I went up there and finally I just looked around, and there was some really destroyed old different carvings of Buddha, and there was some drawings on the walls that in Chinese lettering, and some old faded paintings, but it was really a broken down temple. So I said, well, I guess I should just try to find out at every level. And he taught me a lot about different levels of existence by that time, and to see what else is there here that for me to get. So I sat down and just in a meditative position, legs crossed, and just sat there and kept just getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And then finally I opened my eyes at one point, and I saw this this Mandarin sign up there, which earlier I'd seen it, but I hadn't taken much cognizance of it. And at the top it said, nobody. Nobody. And then underneath it said, nobody. And I went, nobody. And I went, oh, I get it. So everyone thinks that you exist and that you're important, and you've got worries, and you've got concerns, and you've got family, you've got money to make, you've got a profession to create, you've got love to experience. However, without your body, you're still nobody.
Yeah.
And so what the purpose of that was at that level was that this wonderful structure that we have is underrated 1,000%. How about 1,000,000%? How about 1,000,000,000%? You're distracted into, okay, well, if I could make this stock trade, then I'll have enough money to be able to buy this thing, and wouldn't that be fun? And it'd be great to make this discovery in something else.
Super narrow.
Whatever you're doing, you can't do it without this. And people want to say, oh, no, I'm existing, and, with all the books, I'm existing in multiple planes at one time, and I'm really not here. All those wonderful things people like to say. However, if you stub your toe, you're here. And if you cut yourself, you'll see that you bleed. Or even if you learn how to stop the bleeding, which, now I've shown people. But the key is that I got that experience there that I would no longer not just experience my body sort of an athletic experience and trying to stay in great shape and learn all the different martial arts that they were teaching me in the camp, and learn how to defend myself. But also that at each moment I would start to experience the body as something else. And that something else allowed me to go through a number of different other levels, which were extremely dangerous. And I never had those magical abilities to handle those kind of experiences without knowing that the body was a wonderful structure to bring in all types of different vibrations to allow you to do things you never thought possible. And people say, well, what do you mean? Well, just you can go back to examples that have nothing to do with China. I mean, we have stories about, a woman who, it's recorded, a woman who lifts the car off her son.
Sure.
Where'd she get that strength all of a sudden? I mean, really? Did she work out? No. Does she have the strength? No. Could she do it again? Maybe, but she isn't going out trying it.
That's right.
She's not a weightlifter. So where does all that ability come from? Well, it's that you have the ability, just like, did you ever play baseball or tennis?
I play tennis, yeah.
Okay. Do you ever notice a good tennis shot where all of a sudden, you hit it and it just, it was a great shot, even without looking to see where it went. And it makes that special sound, almost like no sound.
Yeah, it's like a no effort shot.
Like no sound. That's being totally in your body.
Yeah, action without achievement almost.
Right, you're totally in the zone. And that's where we're supposed to live all the time, the Grandmaster. So that was the next level. I needed to learn to stay in that level all the time if I was going to go up any higher. So from that point on, you talk to people that go, well, I've studied meditation and I've learned to meditate in different temperatures and things like that. And there's walking meditation. But with him, after that, there was no difference between meditation and life.
And awakened state.
Sleep and meditation. You're awake and meditating. You're always rising in a higher and higher vibration along with the planet, along with everything else that's going on here, which is wonderful because you get infused by all that. So when they had me sit and meditate once in the snow with just a small gi on, and I was hoping it wasn't going to take too long and they just said, you sit here and don't come, we won't come back until, you're ready. And I went, well, I hope that I'm ready before I freeze out here. But eventually I said, well, I am going to freeze unless I do something to keep generating more and more and more, the body warmth and heat, even though didn't have rack to do all that. And eventually, I was in such a state that I wasn't even aware when they finally came back. But when they came back, the Grandmaster pointed and they showed that, all around me, all around the snow in a circle, it had melted. And I'd stayed in the center, even though I wasn't even completely unaware of that. Now, being in that state, to be able to bring in that much energy to keep myself warm and my surroundings was what kept me, I think, from getting a severe frostbite or freezing at that time.
Would it be accurate to say that it's like a extremely spacious awareness at that point, and
that you don't exist in terms of just what you think is any resistance that's in front of you. What's in front of you is just an opportunity for you to expand even further at every moment. That's what I learned. There wasn't anything that was considered an obstacle.
You weren't aware of your endocrine system or
no. You don't have to go to different places. Yeah. Western medicine, although I love it in terms of what it's contributed, that's not this discipline. This discipline is more like quantum, or like quantum physics, which actually Tesla and Einstein refer all the way back to the Yellow Emperor's book that says that the antecedents of quantum physics, even Einstein refers to that, is discovered back then with the, remember the yin yang symbol.
Mm-hmm.
And what that's all about, is that you have everything to do with everything. It doesn't happen in life for you without you being there. Or you could say it the other way, unless you choose not to.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't happen with you, but you still chose.
Yeah.
So you're always the chooser.
Mm-hmm.
And people say, well, that's just a philosophical approach. And you can take that attitude. But if you study any of the materials that we've got for you on the website at Energy for Success, that's the name of the website, Energy, and the company Energy for Success.
Can I just recreate that? So are you saying that life is arising through you? Like everything you're experiencing is arising out of you?
There's nothing that you're not experiencing, that you don't have an option in having a relationship to it one way or the other. Now,
Mm-hmm.
how intense that relationship can be, you take some training.
Yes.
But in terms of being able to heal somebody who's not in the room, who's on the other side of the planet, who calls me and wants something, that takes a little more work. But it's easier to treat someone who's 2 feet away from you. Or it's easier to show them a technique rather than showing them over the phone or showing them over Zoom.
Internet,
but now we've recorded so many of the videos and audios that my goal has finally been accomplished. That the first goal was finally making it through the whole system. And do you want to hear how that happened?
Well, I'm curious if, before you go there, is a relationship non-binary? Like you're no longer looking at, is it this or this? It's just kind of everything is in a coexistence.
Say that in other words.
Meaning, like most people are, so, in very like basic meditation speak, right? There's things arising within you. There's the pleasant sensation. There's the non-pleasant sensation. Oftentimes you're told to value them equally, to just notice sensation and kind of remove the unpleasantness or pleasantness from it. Because I've also sat in 10-day silent meditations, have gained what would seem like science fiction type powers, done sporadic healing on my own body.
Nice.
Things of this nature.
Good.
Have struggled with stabilizing those frequencies and energies.
That's supposed to be your minute-by-minute experience.
Yeah.
And you take a breath, that's your breath.
Right. So I'm curious again, like, is it that because from a quantum field perspective, right, like everything is in a coexistence, binary, the zeros and ones are kind of in a coexistence. Is it something along those lines that you're actually starting to experience reality or matter in this kind of more of a quantum field experience? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The Matrix movie goes into that.
Yeah.
The first movie, when finally Neo goes,
Right.
throws it off
He
and
connects.
just says,
Yeah.
He says, that's it, Smith, and then he goes, and that's when he's ready.
He already knows.
It's all feeling, and then everything is X's and O's. Everything is pluses and minuses. It's all something that's up for your involvement. If you're going to be involved in it, you have a tremendous ability to have it go one way or the other, and that's in your tennis shot. When you have that tennis shot, and what's really great about a great tennis hit, or someone's hit a great baseball or a great softball, is that after you hit it, first place, when it comes at you, you almost know that it's going to be a great shot.
Right.
You can almost hear the words home run.
Yeah. It's a no mind
Yeah,
experience.
it's a no mind experience.
Yeah.
And if you see the people on TV who fall into the zone like that, they almost don't move right away. Even though they hit the ball great, they're sort of suspended because they're fascinated by the fact that they got such a great hit, and it feels so good that you're just not ready to go run, and then all of a sudden you take off and run the bases or something like that. And that experience is available to you, and those results are available to you moment by moment in everything you do. And we have a program that goes into the fact that it's available in all 8 areas that the Grandmaster, instructed me in, which is that you're, in relationships, and I've got all kinds of testimonies about this in love and connection with other people, in your financial success, in your physical prowess, and you being flexible and stronger every day, in your actually being functional without stress. You don't have to be taking something to de-stress yourself if you're not getting stressed every day. If you're actually able to, I had one lady from Silicon Valley said, well, they said I couldn't multitask, and I thought I had to stop because it was making me crazy, but now it's fun, and I don't get stressed out about anything.
Yeah.
It's just like something comes in on the waves, and I go back with it, and I don't have to, reprogram myself each moment going, I'm calm.
Yeah.
There's none of that. This is the way you were meant to be.
True alignment.
Yeah, this is what you're meant to be. And whenever you hit that ball, or when you took that ski turn, think about it. when you made the turn on skiing and you avoided the two red X's or bars there, I mean, you didn't go through, let's see, I want to micro turn my right hand just
Sure.
2 centimeters, and I want to turn my knee 1/8 of an inch, and I want to rotate up on my edge. No, all that is a command to your body responds.
Mm-hmm.
And the environment responds with you, and then all of a sudden you're connected to it. That's the 360. So that's the part that's the joy of taking all these practices that I brought back for everyone to use to allow you to have this kind of life, to keep going forward, up stronger each day, because you can just focus on whichever one you want. And we have them for you in auditory. You can just listen, guided breathing visualizations or videos, and what's embedded in them is the vibrations to bring it out of you, so you don't have to think about it. Because our whole thinking process has become a little bit, overwhelming,
Yes.
And hasn't really brought the freedom that people thought it would be. I mean, we've had plenty of smart people over the years, and we've got a lot of tech, but that's only one half of the yin-yang symbol. The other half is you. And how powerful can you be at every moment without, thousands of other things that you ingest? What if you were pulling in all the energies that are available for you to take in from the whole planet?
Yeah.
And that's why I stayed the length there until finally I actually, what the Grandmaster said, okay, you made it. And then he went through this whole thing about he gave me an interview with him alone, which I never thought I would get. And he said, why we decided to train you? And at that moment, I'm sitting about 10 feet from him. It's the closest I'd been to him when he wasn't doing some treatment on somebody. And I said, oh, this is one of those Zen moments. So this is where I'm supposed to do something, and I'd read all about and studied Zen and all the different techniques of possible representing myself in the midst of this why question. I knew it wasn't just going to be a simple answer. I said, well, maybe he wants me to knock something off the wall by not touching it using an energy field or something. Maybe his son wants to go to medical school. I mean, I couldn't figure it out. So finally, I just went back to that place in the energy, and then finally just answered him. I said, I really don't know. And I didn't think that I'd blown or anything. I just said, I really don't know. And so then he said, well, I'll tell you. And then from that point on, while I was sitting there sort of in this Buddha position, I got hotter and hotter and hotter till finally I'm just sweating like crazy, and he's all the way across the room smiling at me, drinking tea, and telling me about my life growing up in Louisville, Kentucky.
He's telling you.
Yeah, to a translator.
Verbatim.
And so, yeah, and he's telling me things that nobody knew.
Sure.
Especially he says, why when you were just real small, and you had special powers to treat different animals and even treat your aunt and your sister, that you stopped doing that later. Why did you do that? Didn't you make that something you pursued instead of going just into Western medicine? He knew all about that.
Sure.
It just shocked me. And then he says, yeah, it's time. You've made it. He says, you made it to the other side to be able to help other people with this, and your integrity is good, so that we want you to go back to the West and see if you can make the contribution that he knew why I wanted to learn all this. He knew that not only did I want to give Western medicine a chance to only be there for therapeutics when you really needed it,
Yeah.
and let people take over their own lives and be stronger each day, and you be your own health provider, that you're actually able to help yourself and your family and your children all as a family unit, rather than thinking that you don't know what you're doing or don't know how to take care of things, or it's all too mental, when it isn't. Just like hitting a good tennis ball, when you did, there's not much thinking about it, right? It was all of a sudden you're just in the flow. So I got to bring back all these techniques, and over the years I've had multiple conferences and lectures where I've had thousands of testimonials now, but I never wanted to advertise it because I wanted it to be word of mouth. I wanted it to be something that if the Western world was ready for it, it would stand on its own.
Purity, yeah.
It would stand on its own.
Yeah.
So the whole company has all been, the thousands and thousands of people over the years that I've been able to pass this information on to, who've been watching the videos or listening to the guided breathing visualizations. Actually, we have one for your audience.
Let you share that for sure, yeah.
Yeah. That we've had great results. So I've got over 40,000 testimonials now. And it's all been by word of mouth. So now that I'm going to stop doing surgery, I'm going to come out and be able to, kind people like you invited me to be on podcasts and I'm doing some presentation from stage, and we have all these materials now for people to actually not have to go hang on a mountain in China and be left there for 2 days, and not have to be freezing, wondering what's going on, to just get one of the vibrational techniques to be able to make yourself healthier, stronger, more able to have serendipity on command, to actually be in flow or in zone at will.
So
that's the benefits.
Yeah, I love that. And have you found that it's like as you've gone through this process, you share it? Obviously, a lot of time has passed. I know there's a lot of science behind this too, but from like a spiritual perspective, there's the Akash, like the server in the sky that's holding all the information, so to speak. And I have found some research that shows if let's say 10 different labs across the planet are synthesizing some kind of protein, and one discovers how to do that, the other 9 will discover that within a short period of time with no communication between the labs.
Isn't that great?
But it's almost like something is remembered in the field, and it becomes more bioavailable for everybody. It's like we're setting the grooves, right?
Exactly.
So I love what you're doing, because it's like you're taking this ancient wisdom, you're making it more available for everybody. So how realistic is it now between giving someone these tools and watching them stabilize a kind of frequency that is reviving the body or bringing more energy to it? Like what's the time frame that people can expect?
Well, you just choose which of the there's over 256 different vibrations, okay?
Okay.
But what's so great about the materials that I was instructed in, that I've now brought and recorded for everybody to use, is that if you're more kinesthetic and you want to do the physical ones, there's over 100 of those that I have perfectly translated and perfectly brought for people to use, and we have them in different courses.
Beautiful.
Available for people. If you're an auditory and you really like to just listen to things, because some people really would rather listen than read or watch, then we've got the guided breathing visualizations. Guided breathing visualizations and meditation has been around for a long time. However, to get the result right away, I've got these ones that we've translated. We've got report after report after report. Some are 7 minutes long. Some of them are 20 minutes long. Some are even longer, and people get results that day. So it isn't like, the promise of finally, spending a week in a meditation retreat. I hope I get my result. With these, people get the result right away, even if you've never done it. You just listen, and all of a sudden, you just relax. And as long as you aren't playing with your dog or your cell phone, the vibrations of your sensors will open up, and then you'll start pulling in the energy afterwards to get the result you're looking for. And we have them listed under things for your physical health, things for your monetary health, things for your creativity, things for your. One of the great things that I love about the source energy techniques is that it opens up the Einstein part of your brain. That other 90% we're not using all the time. It's available to you, and at certain times when push got to shove. I don't know if you had this experience, but I remember in high school or college, is during finals week, all of a sudden you can read anything and you learn it, right? And you go, where did this ability come from? Why isn't this here all the time? When people say, that during the semester, it would have been a lot easier to learn all this rather than the week before. Sure. So that ability you can just turn on now. Just listen to one of the auditories that we've got available through an app. And they also have the videos that you can watch. And in those, it's more three-dimensional because you've got... I'm presenting from stage, giving people how to do things both physically and going along, pointing out a lot of the resistances that you face in life that you're really not aware of, that you get sucked into. They're really, the Grandmaster used to always call them tricks, so I still call them tricks. That everything that knocks you off is really a trick. To point out the fact that who you are and source energy is really much stronger than any of the distractions or disruptions that you run into. However, if you get sucked into worrying all the time, being upset all the time, or being ill and nothing can release you from that, then you start to circle the drain, and it's hard to get out of that. It's very hard because you just sort of, your feelings and thoughts seem to cave in on you. That's right. What's so great about listening to one of the audios or watching the videos or doing the physical exercises is that it pops you right out of that, and all of a sudden you're back in that centered state. You're in the 360 state. You're in the ability to go through and not be ruffled by whatever is in your work. And you become very creative, and you come up with solutions right there. I think that's one of the greatest things I think that for me that I've enjoyed is that people who are stuck with all kinds of problems, when they call, and I'll say, just listen to this tape or go watch this video, and they'll call me back and say, oh, my whole problem is like really resolved.
Yeah, just metabolized out of the system.
Yeah, you want an example?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
There was a lady, sweet lady. I mean, she's, I think she was in med school, but she wanted to drop out, and so she met a friend who was in the energy at that time, and source energy practices, and was doing them, the 30 minutes a day. And she says, I'm dropping out of med school. I can't stand it. It's making me too nervous. I'm upset all the time. It's too much work. And, I just don't, I feel this isn't the right thing for me. He says, well, you should try the source energy techniques. And she went, really? She met this lady on the plane. But eventually, she did the practices and did so well that her grades went way up, and she ended up being elected the head of her class as far as the person who was when she finally made it from medical school to internship and residency. She got to be chief of her department for the students. It's like we call it chief resident for the other residents there. And then from there, she did so well that she got this fantastic job at a number of different universities, and then she called me again, and I was so happy for her that she'd done so well, and because we now have a really heartfelt doctor who really cared about people, and she was just totally getting stronger and smarter all the time, and she just loved the energy, and even had her patients listen to some of the visualizations. But she says, I've been working so hard, I really want a husband. And I went, okay. This is, the energy is all about you getting all 8 all the time. You're supposed to be growing in relationship, physical health, your ability to contribute to other people, your ability to be financially successful, your ability to get smarter, more intuitive, and insightful. So she says, well, I just don't want a guy, though. I haven't had that much time. I'd like to have a soulmate.
Yeah.
And I went, yeah, you're meant to have the right guy. You're not meant to, do the thing that a lot of people have to go through, which is just decide this is the person I'm in love with and this is going to work. And I hope it works. I said, there's ways to know, just like you've learned how to work your way back through low grades and almost failing out of medical school to becoming, super success. So she did. She found the great guy. Now, it's a better story because she's Islamic. And she told her family, I am not marrying an Islamic guy. I want to marry a guy who's not Islamic. I want to marry a guy who's, she had her criteria.
Sure.
And her family, who were doctors, Islamic doctors, were very wonderful people, but they were very strict about what she needed to do. She says, I'm going to do this on my own, or else I'm not going to get married. Well, they met the guy, and with her ability to be in the energy and loving and caring and sort of creating that field, so the parents just went, yeah, he seems great. It was like,
no issue.
There was nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
They dropped all that stuff and said, she's happy and we're happy, and I don't know what we were upset about. And so it's now one big happy family, and the husband is doing great at work, and he's using the energy techniques to become actually one of the top guys for a major shoe company that we all know. I won't mention the name. But the point is that his using the energy techniques and her having not only opened up the Einstein part of her brain and her being calm, whereas before she was, oh gosh, she'd cycle through so many nervous reactions that she couldn't even say. She would actually shake when I first met her.
Sure.
So that's the promise of really life. Life is meant to be that not only can it get better and better each day, but that's something you can start to expect without having to jump up and down and say, I'm positive, which is okay. I want you to be positive. Everybody should be positive. You should be positive because that's what's waiting for you.
Yes.
That reward's waiting for you, and what pulls us away are the distractions that aren't really as powerful as you with the energy. And so doing the techniques puts you in that place like Neo, where all of a sudden, even if Mr. Smith shows up, you're going to
center
prevail.
aligned.
You'll center, and he's out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing how alignment can not just shift your own perspective, but how people are responding to you, and you realize like the internal parts have been kind of given this energy off that creates the response in your life.
And we've had so many people who, I guess one thing I think it would be important for your listeners is that the energy is just like, each person is different, what they really want to use the energy for.
Absolutely.
I mean, some people go, I really want, like she wanted a soulmate. I've had people come to me who didn't have a chance at some things as far as making a lot of money or being successful. They just didn't have the background. And, now they're contributing to charities. In less than 10 years, they've made a ton of success financially. Some of the people you know, they're on the website. You mentioned some of them. But in being able to work with those people, it's been very satisfying. But for a while, I was working with just, people in the NBA, people in the NFL, people in the National Hockey League, that just to show that you could be a pro athlete. But, they get injured all the time.
Sure.
So they use the energy just to be able to improve and go back in the game. And stay in the game and succeed. I really want people to get the expectation that it is meant for you to do better and better each day. And if it's not happening that way, there is a absolute solution for that using these techniques, and that if you use them, you have the same results that 40,000 people have done so far without any marketing at all. It's all been word of mouth for the past 12, 13 years.
I'm excited to try it myself. I mean, what I find is I will stabilize a frequency for a period of time, feel some slide back. I often feel like even if I'm releasing trauma or something like that, it comes out kind of the way that it came in. It can be very uncomfortable at times, doing a lot of different methodologies.
That's the best thing about source energy. Remember, it's the root. And then out of the root comes all these different branches. So the branch of acupuncture, the branch of Tai Chi, the branch of Qigong, all of which I'd learned before I came to the mountain.
Right.
I was even in the Shaolin monastery, learning all the great Shaolin techniques on how to fight and balance yourself. It was phenomenal. But once you're in the zone or in the flow at will, you can do many of the Shaolin tricks without even knowing you're doing them. Just all of a sudden, you're there, and you're in that position. So I think one of the most important things about the energy is that you get to choose depending on what you want, and then you don't have to think so much about it. Just by watching the videos and getting your sensors in your body to open up to that vibration you need. You don't have to feel the vibration. We're in the Western world, we're so much interested in being able to know and think everything
understand
through. But when you hit a home run, you're not knowing or thinking anything. You're just all of a sudden hit, and you're there. You're part of the bat. You're part of the ball. It's all one